first episode of Literary Recipes with Lily Library. My name's Emily, and this is the start of a cooking series using food found in famous novels. Today we're going to be doing one of my favorite novels, The Hobbit by JRR Tolkien, and we're going to be making Bilbo's buttered scones. Now, Tolkien was British, so it's safe to assume that when he wrote the scene in the beginning of the book, that he was imagining classic British scones. Now, there's quite a difference between British scones and the American scones we get over here. American scones are typically more dense because they have a lot more butter in them, and usually you see them cut into triangles. British scones have much less sugar and butter than the American scones and are taller and cut into circles. They're also much simpler in flavor. The American version often has things like chocolate and heavy spices added to them. This is not the case with the British scones. They're much simpler because they're designed to be topped with other things like butter or preserves or lemon curd. There are a couple of key components to making classic British scones, like Bilbo's buttered scones. First, you need very cold butter that's been cut into cubes. Don't let your butter get too warm or your scones won't get enough lift and they won't be as flaky. You also want to make sure the milk is very cold and you don't overwork the dough. So let's start making our recipe. Okay, so first we're going to start by adding our 2 cups of flour and our other dry ingredients, which includes white sugar, 4 teaspoons of baking powder. Don't be alarmed by the large amount of baking powder. This is going to help you get that nice lift. And some salt. And then we're going to whisk these together. Once you've whisked your dry ingredients together, it's time to add our cold butter that's been cut into cubes. This is 3 tablespoons of butter, and you're going to get right in there with your hands and work the butter into the flour until it resembles super fine breadcrumbs or sand. By using this method to work the butter into the flour, you're ensuring that your scones will be nice and light and flaky because the butter is well dispersed throughout the flour. Next, we're going to add 2/3 of a cup of milk, and once you add it, you're going to stir it, but really carefully until it's just barely combined. You almost want to do it in a folding motion because you really don't want to overmix this dough. You can still see bits of dry flour in there. You're going to dump your dough onto a lightly floured work surface and then pat it together. You don't want to overwork it again. You're going to pat your dough into a disc that's way thicker than you think it should be, so about 1.5 inches thick. And then take a circular cookie cutter, and I learned this trick from Paul Hollywood. You don't want, when you push the cookie cutter down, don't twist it. Just pull it right back up. And there you have your first scone. And when you get to the point where you can't make any more out of that disc, it's okay to recombine it. Just try to do it, handle it as little as you can. This recipe makes about 5 to 6 scones. Sometimes the last one you can just shape freeform and it'll be a little wonky, but that's okay. Who cares? Bilbo doesn't care. Then you're going to take a parchment lined cookie sheet and put your scones on there. And now is the time when you add your egg wash, which is 1 egg yolk with a tablespoon of milk. You're just going to brush it lightly over the top. You don't want it to be so saturated that it's dripping down the sides. You just want it to be a nice little glaze over the top of your scones. Then you're going to put your scones into an oven that has been preheated to 425 degrees. Once you've taken your scones out of the oven, you can leave them on the cookie tray to cool, or what I prefer to do is put them in a basket that's lined with a towel. That way they can cool but not get crunchy on the outside. If you cover them over with the towel, it keeps them nice and soft. I hope you enjoyed making Bilbo's buttered scones with me for our first episode of Literary Recipes with Lily Library. You'll find the recipe for Bilbo's scones on our social media pages, including our Facebook, and in the description box of this video. If you decide to make Bilbo's buttered scones, we would love to see pictures of your finished product. You can send them to us on Facebook or tag us in your pictures on Instagram. I hope you enjoyed this first episode of Literary Recipes with Lily Library. We will see you in the next one.